Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and this is A Date with Miss Hannah. So in today's video we're going to go through we're going to go through questions for the final exams and that course unit Ugandan Economy. And yeah, I hope this video is useful. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video if it is useful to you. So question 1, part A says, throughout the 1990s, the government of Uganda carried out several reforms in the financial sector. One of the reforms was liberalization of interest rates. Using clear diagrams and examples where applicable, explain why this reform was necessary. This question carries 8 marks. So first of all, we need to understand what liberalization of interest rates means. When they say liberalization of interest rates, so they're simply saying you're going to let the interest rates be determined by the market forces of demand and supply rather than determining them yourself, or rather than having the government regulate them. So throughout the 1990s, the government of Uganda was the one to determine the interest rates. And that is why they say money markets were, prior to reforms, heavily regulated by the government. So previously the money market was regulated by the government of Uganda. They would be the ones to set the interest rates. But throughout the 1990s, several reforms were made in the financial sector, and one of them was liberalization of the interest rates. That is letting the market forces of demand and supply determine the interest rates. So Bank of Uganda used to set or fix interest rates charged by the commercial banks, often at relatively lower rates than the market clearing rates, as shown in the graph below. So when you look at this illustration, we have interest rates on the y-axis and then credit on the x-axis. We have the demand curve and then the supply curve, and RE is showing us the equilibrium rate, that is the rate set by forces of demand. We have LE as the loan at equilibrium. Then we have RM, that is the market rate, the rate set by the government. Then we have LD, that is representing the demand of the loan demand. So when you look at this curve, from 0 to LS, obviously you see that from 0 to LS, there is a shorter distance compared to from 0 to LD. That means supply is less than the demand. So there is less supply compared to the demand. People are demanding more because obviously the rates are less, but the banks are supplying less because the demand is too much compared to their production, and the banks are not benefiting due to the low rates and everything. So whenever government set low rates, there was less supply and less demand. So we are going to look at the effects of having low rates. For this question, they are saying, explain why the reform was necessary. Explain why liberalization of interest rates was necessary. So what you need to explain are the disadvantages of the previous method used, which is setting the rates by the government, and the advantages now of having a liberalized economy where the rates are set by the market forces of demand and supply. So we are going to highlight the disadvantages of having low interest rates, which include decrease in supply of credit or loan. So you can say IE from LE to LS, where is LE? LE is the equilibrium price, so that is the price set equilibrium loans. So if the market forces of demand set the rate, we are going to have demand at LE. But if the market forces of demand are now, supply at LE, but if we are having the market forces of demand setting the rates, so your supply is going to reduce from LE to LS. So there's going to be a decrease in the supply of credit or loans, and we shall also have an increase in demand. People are demanding more from LE to LD. We have shortage for credit rationing due to shortage of credit, leading to a reduction in investments, increased unemployment. Social political unrest will increase due to high unemployment, increased poverty, and you can highlight more disadvantages of having low interest rates and then advantages of raising or leaving the rate to be determined by the market forces of demand and supply, and just simply explain those points and you'll be able to acquire your marks. Part B says, while the reforms in the financial sector registered some key achievements, substantial challenges still face the company in regard to achieving efficiency of the financial system. So yes, you have liberalized the economy, but there are still challenges. And they're telling us one of the challenges is high lending rates charged by banks. To what extent does the oligopoly banking structure in Uganda account for this problem? So this question is two-sided because they're saying to what extent. That means there could be a larger extent and a smaller extent. So you can start to a larger extent, then you show how the oligopoly banking structure has actually caused high lending rates, and then you can say to a lower extent, to a smaller extent, and you show how the oligopoly banking structure has not led, or you can actually say to a lower extent and then just bring in other causes of high lending rates. So a larger extent, how the oligopoly banking structure has led to this. To a smaller extent, you bring other causes of high lending rates. So how the oligopoly banking structure has actually led to high lending rates, we can say there are a few banks in the oligopoly structure. We have I've forgotten how you call this. Monopoly, actually, right? Monopoly. There are a few banks that control a large market share. And then you say the structure implies that the demand curve or the average revenue for banking sector in Uganda is kinked. I'll just show you the curve right here. This is the curve. Oligopoly banking structure. So this, you have interest rates and then credit this side. So they're saying the structure implies that the demand curve for the banking sector in Uganda is kinked, and they're saying a kinked demand curve limits flexibility in interest rate determination. The market leaders set the rate at which other banks have to lend, and the kink obstructs other banks from reducing the rate since the lower portion is inelastic. So, like I say, there is too much monopoly. So these big banks that are actually already occupying the larger market share are dictating what these other small banks should do. So these other small banks cannot, they just have to follow what the market leaders have said, and they cannot adjust to a lower portion because to a smaller rate because the lower portion is inelastic. This curve curtails competition in the banking sector, holding the rates high. You can look at this diagram. It explains everything, the oligopoly structure. And then the however part, the one we say to a lower extent, we bring out other causes of high lending rates, for example, high operational costs, absence of long-term finance, high risk profiles among most borrowers in Uganda, high litigation costs, inefficiencies in land and company registries, inadequate insolvency laws. So you can bring out other points. You just have to look at how many marks the question has, and you can know how many points you're supposed to bring out. This is just 12 marks, so you can actually balance. Maybe you can have 8 for the first part and 8 for the other part because they need just like 6 to balance it, but you can add a few points to make sure your points are weighing. Then part C says briefly explain the efforts being implemented to reduce lending rates in Uganda. This is just straightforward. Efforts being implemented to reduce lending rates in Uganda. 5 marks. That means you just need to list without even going through any explanations, as long as you list your 5 points. So number 1, we have establishment of Credit Reference Bureau and national IDs to reduce risk. We also have publishing of rates in media to reduce information asymmetry. What is information asymmetry? Information asymmetry is the gap between information. So the bank has the loans, the people need the loans, but these people do not know that they can actually go to a bank and access a loan. So that is, we are having an information gap. They are not informed. So we need to reduce that information gap or information asymmetry by publishing the rates in media. Like the way they are doing it right now, you find they publish the interest rates in newspapers, the interest rates are posted all over social media to reduce information asymmetry. And then we have computerization of land registry and DRSP to improve collateral quality and ease loan assessment. Deepening of financial sector, the pensions financial sector of pension sector. Overall improvement of infrastructure, that is ICT, roads, electricity, security. Then we have licensing of more. Okay, so I want to explain the point of overall improvement of infrastructure. Somebody may be like, how are roads going to help in the reduction of lending rates? So this means that more people are going to actually be availed to the loans. If people in Karamoja need these loans, but there is no way you're going to go and construct your bank that side because there is no electricity, there is no security, there is no. So if all this infrastructure is improved, that means these banking financial services are going to be brought closer to the people. And if there's more demand, we can always reduce the rates because of more demand. So we have licensing of more deposit taking institutions to increase competition. So that is all for today. We shall come back in the next video with the next question. I hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video.